Phase two is called Explore and Discover, and it's really called that way for a reason. One of the rules in the protocol for phase two is that we don't explore why. And people who really care adamantly and passionately about the data, when they're looking at data that is sometimes very unpleasant, we really want to move really quickly to fixing that data. And so we see one piece of information that's particularly troublesome. We want to, as teachers and administrators, we want to jump on that and fix it right away. By eliminating that from the protocol and saying that in phase three, we'll talk about why until the cows come home, but in phase two, we really want to explore the problem in as great a depth as possible. And that's actually liberating for people who care so much about the data, because they're really able to look at the multiple measures of data to really try to discover what's really going on in that district or in that building without having to rationalize for why it's taking place. In this particular phase, what you're really trying to do is present the data that you highlighted and kind of previewed in phase one. And here you want them to really be able to understand what the graphics, what they say numerically, and then you want them to be able to prioritize what are some of the most important narrative statements that come from that data analysis. And a narrative statement is really nothing more than very concretely explaining what the problem is that is identified by the data. For example, in the MEP in 2012 and in 2013, the achievement gap between economically advantaged and disadvantaged students grew by 8%, or decreased by 12%, or remained constant at 15%. So you want something that's very, very concrete so that when the data is no longer in front of you, these narrative statements would stand alone. So let's look at a specific example from a data conversation. And in this particular district, we looked at writing scores and the writing achievement gap that seemed to be growing from year to year in this elementary MEP, on the elementary MEP exam. And so in phase one, we looked at predictions about student proficiency on the writing test over the past 5 years. And we asked them to predict achievement levels, predict proficiency levels, the percentage of kids who were passing the writing test from year to year. And because I knew that there was an achievement gap between economically advantaged and disadvantaged students, I also asked them to look and to predict, what differences there would be for students who are economically advantaged, economically disadvantaged, as well as the gender, to predict performance by boys and girls. This was in a particular district that did not have much ethnic diversity. It was pretty much an all-white school district with large gaps in economic status. So in phase one, we really explored proficiency levels in the writing portion of the MEP test for fourth grade writing, and we really looked at the proficiency trends as well as the differences by gender and by economic status. So in phase two, I actually brought them that data, and we looked at the actual proficiency levels, we looked at the achievement gap levels, and we looked at the differences in proficiency and performance between gender, based on gender and economic status. But I also wanted to explore that more deeply, because achievement data is just one piece of the puzzle. So we also looked at process data. We looked at how they were teaching writing in the early grades. We looked at curriculum. We looked at how much time is spent on writing in those early grades. We talked about some of the writing prompts that were there, and were those boy-specific or girl-specific. We looked at the demographic data in the district to see that the number of students that were economically disadvantaged was growing by leaps and bounds in the district. And so if we don't do something about that, then those gaps continue to grow. So in phase two, you're really able to take an idea, a concept, where we knew where the achievement gap was, and we're able to use other forms of data to kind of help us confirm and see really more deeply where the problem really lies.